Hello folks, this is Joel583, and I know I haven't really put out any videos about my own creations. That's mostly because I didn't really have anything on hand, and I usually don't have a lot of time to actually get out my Legos and build. Okay, yes I could, but there really isn't much to say about you. Actually, to be honest, I'm gonna have to completely redo most of your design. Yeah, sorry about that. So mostly I'm trying to find as much time as I can to actually get around and building, so I'll have 4 videos for the month of October. And I'm going to call this series MOCtober. Quiet you. And of course, with these all taking place in the month of October, I thought it'd be best I make them all Halloween related. And we'll be starting the month off with a Rise of the Dead graveyard scene. I've actually done this once before, about 4 or 5 years ago. And some elements were probably a lot better then compared to now, but I do think I've improved a few things on here. So let's start this review with an introduction of the characters. Alright, and first we're going to start off with the 3 characters who are, I call them the punk teenagers. So basically, these are 3 teenagers who thought it'd be funny to go to a graveyard and start spreading graffiti. Unfortunately for them, it was the wrong place at the wrong time and the very wrong activity. I try to make each one look like they're trying to keep hidden, stay in the shadows, and not get caught, with these 2 being the most extreme about it. So first off, we'll start with this guy who has a lot of spilt paint on his jacket. Now this probably could have been done a lot better, but for the sake of this scene, this is supposed to be a can of spray paint, with the color on the bottom showing the color of the paint. So this guy uses blue spray paint. For that we use one of the Ninjago masks to cover up all his face except for the eyes. It's black, so I thought it'd be a good idea to use that for trying to cover up his face, and also not to draw attention in dark areas. As for the face itself, luckily I get my hands on a mad scientist character from one of the older minifig collection series. And I really liked it because he has these red goggles. Basically, he's trying to look cool while keeping his identity a secret, all while defacing hollow ground. And one thing that I was thankful that I was able to do was each minifigure, each teenager at least, each one has a chain that goes over the right leg. It's a small detail, but I was hoping it would add a bit more to their little gang. Now this guy was probably the most difficult to get put together, mainly because of the head. This is the guy who's the first of the 3 to encounter a zombie. I really want to make sure he had a freaked out face, very worried and scared for his life. And this is the only head that I have that had that face and did not have facial hair. He has a hoodie. As I mentioned before, he has the same pants with the chain going down the right leg. And this one uses a purple spray paint. He wears a beanie on his head, which one could probably imagine that it's actually a ski mask that he just has folded up on his head to reveal his face. Maybe it was covering up his eyes and making it difficult for him to do his graffiti. Finally, we have the guy who kind of went overboard with his costume. As in, he tried to actually look like a ninja instead of just trying to not be noticed. And here's the piece that, again, I was thankful for. Belt buckle on his pants was thankfully matched up with the one on his body piece. And he has the chain that was greatly needed. Actually, he carries a red spray can and sort of a backpack that carries a yellow spray can. The head is a Foot Ninja head from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series, and I think it went quite well. Because he's dressed like a ninja, the other 2 decided to trust him with the spare spray can. And here we have the groundskeeper of the cemetery, an old man who's seen a lot of things in his life. I have him carrying a shotgun because this is not his first Rise of the Dead scene, and a bottle of beverage, because again, it's not the first time this has happened. And then I can't really say much about him. Both the body and the legs are from the lawnmower set that I reviewed not long ago. I feel like I could have used something else, but I'm not really sure. Alright, and here we have one of the 3 zombies. His head's not attached because in the scene, the groundskeeper actually blew his head off with a shotgun. From looking at him, he has a peg leg and hook for a hand. So he's actually been down there for a while, but apparently he was preserved quite well. The head itself is actually a very, very old Anakin Skywalker head from a Star Wars set where Anakin Skywalker turns into Darth Vader. So there's basically 2 versions of this head that comes with that set. This version, which is gray and looks half dead already, and a more colorful version of the head. The second zombie is also the first one that the terrified teenager encountered. As the teenager was spray painting his grave, he got this guy in the head as he was coming out of the dirt. He then proceeds to chase the teenager, carrying a stray bone in hand, possibly to beat him before eating him. The second and final zombie, well, he was rising from the ground. This guy's actually from both the body and the head are from Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides series, and I could not remember what pieces were his legs, so I decided to have him be the one who was coming out of the ground. I think it goes for a nice touch. And now we're done with the zombies. Let's take a look at these skeletons. There are 4 in total, but 3 different kinds. Originally, he was going to have shorter legs, and I was going to have him be Napoleon. But that felt like too much of a stretch. So I decided to make him a somewhat normal, undead sea captain who did not get buried at sea. He has a peg leg, and he comes with a cutlass, as well as little shoulder pads, I cannot remember what they're called, and a hat, because a hat. And here is one of the skeletons. So as you can see, he has a giant bone that he uses as a weapon. Other than that, there's not much to say about him. And last, but certainly not least, a little Grim Reaper, doing the best I could to give him a hood, even though I don't have a hood. So instead he has plain black body piece, plain black legs, and I believe that's called a cowl. He has a brown staff with a sword attached to it, and he's using the Egyptian crystal thing from the Monster Hunter series. He's using this to raise the dead. And on the side here, you can probably tell he has 2 capes. A Batman cape and a smaller cape that normally goes over the shoulder, because I was trying to go for a cloak look. So for the cemetery itself, the first thing you'll probably notice is the gate and fence. This is probably one of the only few things from my first attempt at building a cemetery that I tried the best I could to keep it. And you just have an archway gate. Then you have a fence. The fence is basically just these pieces, but in black and having black robot arms connecting them. It's fairly simple. I could probably be able to adjust it and make it look better. But for now, I like how it turned out. And spread out around the whole thing, around the whole ground, is some weeds, rocks, and smaller weeds. Here you'll notice the garden shed, which has a trash can with a bottle in it, a box of tools containing an axe, a broom, a shovel, and 2 pickaxes. With the gardener shack, I'm actually surprised I had enough of the pieces to make this look somewhat like a log cabin. But the door, I do not like. I couldn't think of any way to actually connect it to the shack, so it's just kind of wedged in between there. But there's a small window, so there's that. You have a headstone, as well as the dirt that's been risen up, some weeds around the grave, and you have dirt, basically like we're supposed to act like footsteps. And you can see a few bones and a few more weeds spread out around the whole place. For a groundskeeper, he does not do his job too well. And on the other corner, we have a corner of a crypt. Again, it's another thing that was carried over from the first time I tried building this kind of scene. Granted, this one is not as good as the first attempt, but I tried getting in some pillars this time, and you have some weeds growing out of the side. This one's starting to flower. Well, I wish I kind of made the whole thing a bit taller. As it is, I think it's actually shorter than the shack. And you have the other skeleton that you can see is coming out. You have the scene with the half a zombie coming out of the ground. And you see the first gravestone with some graffiti. 2 pieces on the top, one on the ground and one beside it. Then you have some weeds and some more dirt. And finally you have the last bit of ivy that's starting to grow out on this side. On the fence you can see some of the blue spray paint that's already been used on it. And on this side you see a lot more of the red spray paint was used. Dirt, rocks, weeds, spray paint. I tried to get in as much detail as I could in a crowded amount of space without actually making it seem crowded. True, but I want to make sure it has a green background, which this thing does not have. I don't think I have enough green plate pieces or bricks that I can actually use to make this scene. Maybe sometime in the future I can find a larger base plate for this. But until then, I'll just have to use this. Alright, and that is my Rise of the Dead graveyard scene. This thing took me about 2 days to make, and some fiddling afterwards. There's a few things I could do different, a lot of things I would like to do different, and hopefully next time I do this, it'll be a bit better. In fact, I would actually like to have some feedback on this. If you can think of any way I can improve this, don't hesitate to ask. And hopefully I'll get around to do it to make it better next time. I thank you folks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Happy Halloween!